Hello and welcome to In the Field, a live stream series from Fujifilm South Africa. As always, my name is Paul Choy and I'm a Fujifilm ex-photographer. And every week I'm joined by a different guest from around the world as we explore a behind-the-scenes look into their photography. And this week we are going to Italy, where I'm joined by landscape photographer Andrea Livieri. Okay, Andrea, welcome.
Hi, Paul. It's great to
Thank
be
you very
here.
much. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I'm really glad to participate in one of these conversations. Yeah,
And I'm excited to have a look behind your wonderful photography because I've actually been keen to chat to you for a while. I've been a big fan for a long time,
thank you.
and so I'm excited to hear a little bit more about how you've created some of the wonderful photographs that you've captured. I introduced you as a landscape photographer, and I think that we all have our specialties. We all like to photograph lots of different things, but I think it's fair to say that landscape photography is probably your main style. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah. I started like portrait photography, and I still quite like portraits. But in the last 5 years, I went deep into landscape photography. And so that's my main job.
Well, we are going to hear all about that. And for those of you who are watching us live, please do leave your comments, your questions, and I'm going to put those to Andrea. And those of you who are watching us later, you are very welcome at all. I hope you enjoy our discussion. But let's start at the beginning. Now, here's the thing. I first came across your work via your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I've been very much enjoying your photography YouTube tutorials and videos. But I found an older channel which
Yeah.
had some music going on. There was perhaps I should have introduced you as a full-time photographer and part-time rock star, because I'm not sure if I was meant to find those videos, but there is another channel with a younger looking Andrea playing some guitar.
Yeah.
So you're a musician as well.
Yeah, yeah. I my previous career was as a musician and a guitar teacher, and I did that for about almost 20 years, up until about 2 years ago, when I don't know how to say, but music career just kind of gradually faded away. Not completely, because I still love to play my guitar. I love to create music and stuff like that. But I think maybe I lost in some part my interest in teaching music, rather than remove completely music from my life. That actually probably never happened. And yeah, after that, I made a gradually transition full time into photography. So
Was that an overnight thing, or was that a process? Did you evolve from one to the other, or was
I
it something that happened quickly?
no, I think it's something that's it's happened quite quickly, actually, because short story, in 2008, I needed some photos for to promote myself, my business as musician, and I bumped into a very talented photographer, portrait photographer in my area, who captured a series of studio portraits of me with my guitar. And that was actually the first time I saw the extraordinary creative process behind a shot. So a photo session, that photo session changed completely my life. So even though I had just seen a hint of a real photo session, I immediately understand how I could expand the other side, of me that I couldn't express with music, and that was enlightening. So I started pursuing this new path with the photography. I bought my first DSLR, Nikon D60, very cheap camera at the time, and I started to take hundreds of awful pictures. Awful. And it was so fascinating to experiment with things, light settings, lenses. Oh gosh, I had a lot of fun. I still having a lot of fun with photography. And after a year, I switched to Canon. I bought my Canon 7D, and I binged hundreds of videos on YouTube, and I took a bunch of online classes on Cadby training. I spent literally 10, 12 hours per day watching all that stuff about settings, shutter speed, aperture, composition, light, flashes, modifiers, transmitters, and everything around that kind of photography. And I was completely bewatched by Joe McNally and Jeremy Cowart, two marvelous photographers, American photographers. And so my first 5-6 years, I experimented everything I could with portrait photography, natural light, artificial light, and how to work with models, corporate portraits for several companies, and I especially do love environmental portraits with just one flashlight. So that was my beginning as portrait photography, and something that introduced me in the photography world.
One of the things I find very interesting, especially about creative people, is that whether creative people have that built-in creativity and they're just looking for their way of expressing it. So in your case, for example, music was a way to express it, but then photography offered another way to express it. So it's not necessarily that a musician or a singer or a writer or a photographer are those things. I wonder whether those are all creative people and they're just looking for different ways to let that creativity out. And that's why I find it interesting that often a person is creative in one part of their life, is often creative in other parts of their lives, even if that's not something they do professionally or in the public. Sometimes you get things like an actor who can sing really well. They might never sing in public, but they still sing privately because it's their way of creativity. And that's why I'm always interested in the way that people can swap from one area of creativity in their life to another area. And of course, thankfully you pursued photography, because we get to chat now. And as I said, you're predominantly a landscape photographer. And one of the things that I'm very interested in is you've mentioned how you started out and you bought yourself an entry-level camera. You, as we all do when we're starting out, especially something we're interested in, you consumed all of this information, because photography hooks you. Once you've been caught by the photography bug, then you do spend 10 hours a day watching YouTube videos to develop your skills. And then you moved on, and obviously, this being a conversation with Fujifilm, clearly you shoot with Fujifilm gear. So I'm interested, that transition, that journey to Fujifilm. What was it first that attracted you about Fujifilm?
I started using Fujifilm cameras in 2013, I guess. 2013, 2014. And my first one was the X10, a very compact camera, super nice. I guess 4x3 sensors, very a small sensor. And then after that, after 6 months, I start to see on the web a couple of photographers like Zach Arias, who made tutorial on using Fujifilm, and he used the X100. So I totally fell in love with that camera, so I bought immediately, and that was my first time with a Fujifilm camera. But the real switch to Fujifilm happened in 2016 when I bought the XT2, and then I completely shift from the traditional reflex camera to a mirrorless camera, and I'm stick with that. So I really love the ergonomics of that camera, the feel that it has when I outside shooting. It's something that it's difficult to explain. It's like to handle a guitar. You can handle maybe a Stratocaster or a Les Paul. The feeling, they are both guitars, but the feeling is completely different. You don't play the same music with a Stratocaster and with a Les Paul. So the approach is different. The medium is the same, but the approach is totally different. So that happens with Fujifilm cameras. And probably because I'm a Les Paul guitar player, I love Les Paul, Gibson, and I think that in photography, Fujifilm is my Gibson Les Paul. So that's,
it's interesting how you use that analogy. When I first started with Fujifilm, very similar to you actually, and I remember Zacharias' review of the original X100. There was a great written review he did, and that was around the time that I got my first X100, and that hooked me. The Fujifilm system hooked me very quickly. But one of the things that at the time, if we think back to those times, similar to yourself, the sensor was a little bit smaller. And most of my photography is for print, and I print as in books, or I print in magazines, or especially for wall art. And so the problem I was getting is they were slightly too small when they were coming out. I really didn't have much room for maneuver. So I thought, okay, let me try. And I went and I got a couple of other cameras from different manufacturers. And one of the things was some of them had huge sensors at the time, 40 megapixels, which was way more than I needed. The Fuji at the time was a 16 megapixel. And one of the things that I found with it is it didn't have, by then I got used to Fujifilm. And the feel of these cameras wasn't the same. There was nothing wrong with them. If you get yourself a camera from another manufacturer, these are beautiful cameras, but there's a different feel. And it felt like, to me, it felt like a Mercedes Benz. Using the cameras I bought, it felt like a Mercedes Benz. Beautiful engineering, but missing some soul. Whereas my Fujifilm was more like, I always feel like it's more like a Mini Cooper, like a 1960s Mini Cooper. Especially those early models, if I'm honest, those early models had some of their quirks. They didn't always perform exactly the way you thought they might perform. Just like an old 1960s Mini Cooper, but it had soul, and the photographs that were created had emotion, atmosphere. Whereas the Mercedes-Benz was precision engineering, which produced perfectly sharp, perfectly exposed, for me, perfectly boring photographs. Whereas the Fujifilm had that little bit of quirky. At the time, it made you work for the image, but the image you got had some real emotion. And that's one of the things that I love about the Fujifilm system.
We are on the same page.
Exactly. Now, but so that was back then. Today, if you're heading out today, you're heading out into the wilderness. You've got your North Face jumper on. You're ready to go out into the wilderness. What's in your camera bag? What must you have in your camera bag as you're heading out?
For sure, recently a year ago I bought the XT4, so I'm really into the XT series. So for sure XT4. I usually bring with me two bodies, an XT4 and the XT3 or the XT30, but for sure at least one body. And my gear are very simple when I go outside shooting landscape, and I use the 10-24, a wide-angle lens, zoom lens, and the 50-140. I'm more a telephoto shooter rather than a wide-angle shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I started. That's funny because when I start with portrait photography, I start with Joe McNally is a wide-angle guy most of the time with his images, and I started with the wide angle, the 1635 full frame, and then with the landscape, I started with the wide angle, but I slowly moved towards the medium tele and telephoto shots. Actually, most of the images we are going to share with the audience are more. The majority are with the telephoto. Yeah, but a couple of lenses, a couple of bodies, just to avoid any problem when you are in difficult conditions, when you have maybe water spray next to the waterfalls, or you have some spray with snow in the mountains in bad weather. So I try to reduce the number of problems, changing lenses, and maybe something hits the sensor.
And certainly the XT4, the weather sealing of the XT4 is wonderful for taking out into those situations where you're close to the sea, you're close to the waterfalls or things like that. For me, one of the things actually, whenever we see discussion of weather sealing, you always see people out in the rain. For me, it's never really the rain that's the issue. It's more the dusty conditions of places like, as a documentary photographer, I found myself a lot in the Middle East or in deserts or things like that. And the amount of time that I've had spent in the past of really worrying about those fine pieces of dust getting in, whereas the weather sealing of these new bodies is just fantastic for those conditions as well. But this is something that I'm enjoying now, is we're able to go out with just a couple of bodies and a couple of lenses. Before, even a few years ago, we were having to take a huge bag with us or a huge Pelican case or something to add to carry the equipment. And now we can get away with just a couple of bodies and a couple of lenses. So that's
Actually,
wonderful.
On my backpack, I just have a couple of lenses, couple of bodies. I have enough space to put my drones, filters, all kind of stuff. Maybe a couple of t-shirts, a shell, stuff like that. Instead, when I was using when I used the full frame, the Canon system, there's a lot of pain.
Whereas this is one of the things that I love with these lightweight cameras of Fujifilm, that we're able to get that power, but we're still able to just throw it into a rucksack. But let's have a look at some of your photographs. Just before we do, let's Pete, thank you everybody for saying hello. Richard has joined us. Richard, hi. Guys, don't forget to send to post any questions you've got, but let's have a quick look at some of your photographs, and perhaps you can take us through some of them. So let's, where are we starting here? Where are we here?
We are in Italy. We are it was I took this shot during one of my workshops in the Dolomites in the winter, actually last 2020. And this location is probably one of my favorites ever. It's I took this image from a terrace from Rifugio Lagazzuoi. That's a hut in the mountains. You can reach the Rifugio via a long hike, about 3 hours, or there is a convenience cable car for people don't want to.
That's cheating. Hiking. That's cheating. If you can walk it, you need to walk it, surely.
Yeah, but sometime, and it has this wonderful terrace where you have almost a view of 270 degrees, where you can shoot from the top around. We are at 2,700-ish meters on the sea level. And we stay there overnight for a couple of days. And yeah, this was in early morning. I'm not a huge fan. I was, but not more. Huge fan of the pinky, purple colors. No more. I'm more passionate about dynamic lights. Just right after the sunrise or just before the sunrise. That's where the action that's I have more feeling with that kind of condition. So these images took that morning. The weather was quite hard, terrible, and a lot of snow and strong wind, freezing cold, temperature like minus 23. Absolutely challenging as situation. And the sun starts to raise up, and the moisture on the snow on the air kept these beautiful warm lights. And I try to convey an image that is quite different from what you usually see on that from that spot. People are more used to capture the soft tones, soft light right before the sun kick up, and other people love to, because there is quite difficult. But if you have if you are lucky, there are some cloud inversion that are really cool up there. But didn't happen, so I capture these moments with a lot of actions, in my opinion. And actually, the 4 birds are, in some part are staged, because there were just a couple of birds. I cheated with Photoshop, adding a couple more, because 2 for me was not enough. And
I love the honesty. I love the honesty, because most people would not have admitted that, and they would take the win. But I love the honesty.
Yeah, couple of them are real. The other 2, no. But we are creators, so I have something something in my mind, and that's what I saw, and that I wanted to put on my images. I just made a very easy editing, because just to emphasize a little more that that kind of smoke of snow right in the ridges of the mountains, and just emphasize the light coming from the left and nothing else, just to get more, to inject a little bit more contrast that the raw file doesn't have, and that's it. And obviously I used a telephoto lens just to framing very close where the action was.
I think it's interesting you mentioned that the weather was challenging that day.
Absolutely.
And something that I think people, especially people getting into photography, are less aware of, is that you wake up in the morning, and of course we all know that the early morning or later in the afternoon is the best time for light, of course.
Yeah.
But generally, most of the photographers, myself included, most photographers I know prefer the early morning, because we haven't got to deal with the people.
Yeah.
There's less people around early in the morning. And one of the things that surprises me, how often people will wake up early, look out, and it's raining or it's snowing or the wind is blowing or something, and they think, well, I'm not going to get a shot today, so I'll go back to bed. When actually you have to persevere and you have to get out there, because sometimes when we've got those challenging conditions, we have to find the patience. You find that gap in the weather and you get the shot that you never would have got otherwise. It's because of the weather that cleared the air system or created the drama. I've got a particular photograph from Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. And the day I captured that, it was raining for almost almost non-stop for my entire journey to get to the falls. And I got a window of about 5 minutes between the rain, but I got a beautiful photograph of the Niagara Falls that I wouldn't have got if the weather had been perfect before. So that's certainly a tip I would share with anybody that is looking. It's interesting that you mentioned it. Use that weather to your advantage. Just because the weather doesn't look great when you're going out doesn't mean it won't look great in the photograph. And I think, you know, what you've captured here, I was interested to when you said that the weather challenged. But sometimes the best photographs are the ones that we are challenged by, the ones that we have to work to get. Because if we haven't had to work for it, then what was the point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's have a look at another. Yes, this is beautiful. Tell me about this. This is still in the Dolomites.
Yeah, always in the Dolomites. This is another famous pass, Passo Giao, and the Dolomites is near Cortina. And here I was. I captured this one actually during a one-to-one workshop with one of my students, and this pinky rhododendron. And yes, I was leading this workshop, and we were walking towards the spot where we supposed to shoot during the sunset. And then I turned my head on the left, and I saw this beautiful dark horse.
Now, please tell me those horses were there. You didn't Photoshop these ones in.
Absolutely, it's real. It was there. Yeah, no. It's there. And when I saw it, I immediately stopped. I took my 2024, and actually I grabbed maybe 2-3 frames, and then I moved on. But what kept my attention was the light and the arrangement of the flowers here on the bottom of the frame, and actually how the mountain, the peak lead these little lines of the flowers that works together with the mountain, and this kind of centrality is correct. With the clouds, and it worked perfectly. So just a couple of frames and done. It's a very spontaneous shot, nothing planned, and I really react to the scene. That's what I like the most. And actually, the images I love the most are images that happened, nothing planned.
Well, you say nothing planned, but of course you had to be there to capture it. You had to have a camera with you to capture it. So what you captured wasn't planned, but you were ready to exploit whatever came your way. And I think that's one of the things that I love about these Fujifilm cameras is obviously if you're going out on a trek like this, you're going to have your camera. But even when we're just out and about, have a camera with you all the time, because you never know when those spontaneous moments are going to find. And what I love here that we have a comment from Warren there, which I completely agree with. The drama. This is what comes out in this. It's the drama of this shot. I love the way that. I love the clouds, and particularly I love the way that there's a break in the clouds. So there's that light just coming through, just there to illuminate the mountain and just kind of put a spotlight where the horses are. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, this place is very challenging because it's like you always have a very bad weather up there, or you have a blue flat sky all the day. So it's it's not so common to see conditions like this. So a combination of things and lucky for sure.
And that 10-24 lens, because this is super wide, and without that, I'm not sure you wouldn't have got that same drama. That was a perfect lens for this kind of scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it works perfectly.
Let's have a look. Let's move on. Have a look. A couple of other photographs.
Yeah.
I'm presuming we're still in Italy here.
Oh yeah, yeah. This I want to show you these images because is another example on how I always try to interpret something differently on my images of very famous spots in the Dolomites. This is from Alpe di Siusi, and actually this shot was taken right from the balcony of my hotel room.
Wow.
It was early afternoon during the afternoon break with participants before the post-processing session, and I was right there in the balcony just to enjoy the fresh air, and I saw these kind of super dramatic lights cutting through these jagged peaks, and I took immediately my telephoto lens. I shoot I guess 6 or 7 images, vertical images, and I stitched them with the pano function in Lightroom. Very quick edit just to emphasize the contrast of the light rays, and the shadows, to find the right balance to create this kind of moody, dramatic feeling, and that's it.
I mean, you skipped over it there. You skipped over and said you took a quick pano shot and stitched it together. But of course, it's not as simple as that. It's having the vision to see it in the first place, and also the technical side. Now, of course, these days, this a lot of the processing software or whatever will help us, but it's having that vision as well. And I think that using, I've noticed with some of your photography, you will use taking multiple shots, maybe a panoramic shot and stitching together, or a focus on things like on bracketing or focus bracketing, so these kind of techniques, which often people will overlook, but can bring so much to the shots.
Oh yeah, I think this is another translation from music. I always say my idea of technique in music and in photography or any kind of art probably is that it's very important to study technique, because technique is something that creates your technical skills, okay, not your vision. Vision is completely different. Your intuition is completely different. But I much prefer to have techniques and don't use it, rather than don't have enough technique and I maybe find myself in a situation where I need that kind of technique. So it's better to continue to study new techniques and how to achieve some kind of results, and maybe never use them, but if you need them, you have it.
I think we have Peter. Hi, Peter. Peter Delaney, a wonderful wildlife photographer, who's I completely agree, loving the layers and the mono look, and it's a beautiful. And I think what I'm very interested in what you just said there about learning the techniques. Photography has often been described as where science and art meet. And I agree with that. I think the art side is much more important. There's the science, of course. We have to learn the theory of photography, at least the basics of photography. But one of the things that we all know, and yet sometimes we don't put into practice, is we never stop learning in photography. There is always something to learn. And the problem that often happens is photographers will find themselves stuck in a groove. They do what they do, whereas there's always something to learn. And whenever I hear people saying that the golden age of photography is finished because everybody's got a phone in their pocket with a camera. I never understand that, because I think it's the best time ever to be a photographer. We have so many resources, so much at a click of a button, and we can learn new techniques. And I completely agree your point there, that it's better to have that technique in your pocket and not use it than not have it at all, because I bet you you will use it. There'll be a chance where you find. So let's go and let's practice. Even those of us that have been a photographer for a while, there is still so much to learn. And look, I think we have Martini. Is this somebody that agrees with us? So yes, I think that's great. A great tip is to go and learn your techniques. I want to pick up on that a little bit, because you teach a lot of workshops. You teach a lot of, I see you do, I know you do a lot of photo tours and workshops, and education seems to be something that you put a lot of passion in. And anybody who goes and watches your YouTube videos, which I would strongly encourage anybody to do, will find them very informative with technique. And so I'm interested in this aspect of education. That again, that seems to be a throw over from your other areas of creativity. You used to teach music, you're teaching photography. What is it about teaching people that what's your passion there?
Actually, because I love to share. I love to share the knowledge, what I learned, and I really enjoy to see people, young photographer or young musicians that love what they are doing, and they are following their passion, and it's something that push me towards them. Is something that creates connection with other people. Actually, teaching, leading workshops is something that is. I love to meet people. I love to stay with people and share experience. Actually, you teach because you want to impart something to people. Okay, it's also why you play music and you photograph, and you want to change somebody's views of life, your life. So I've been very fortunate, lucky to have had students that really appreciated what I was about. So people says, well, it's tough to be a teacher. Yes, of course, it's quite tough. You have to deal with different feeling, different moods, characters, and skills. Every single people reacts in a different way. And but I usually say no, it's not so tough as you think. I thought it's tough to be a teacher and of students who don't want to learn. That's okay. But everybody I ever teach it wanted to come to listen to me, so it's relatively easy. Okay. That's
the thing is, the people that are coming on your workshops, they want to learn. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that it's difficult to teach people who don't want to learn. But like you expressed, I have the same experience. When I first picked up a camera, I was hooked straight away, and then I devoured all the information I could find because I was hooked. And then it becomes something that you want to learn. Something I've heard people say often, I've heard people talking about teaching, and something that I hear is, people question saying, but aren't you worried that you're going to teach somebody that's going to be coming and taking your jobs, or coming and taking doing your work? And so what do you say to those people that say you shouldn't teach everything because they might come and take your take up the jobs that you were going to do? What do you say to those people?
It's very very simple. We have our uniqueness. We are unique, so there is something that other people can't stole us in any way. So our vision is something that we can teach how to improve how people see in the case of in regards to photography, or how to listen when we are talking about music, but the concept is practically the same. So I never had the fear to share too much of my knowledge or what I know. I don't think that it's a bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. The thing is, you're exactly right that the uniqueness of each of our styles. I a short while ago, I had a very well known photographer. Shoots very widely around the world, and was coming to visit the island where I'm based. And we went out shooting. And what I found interesting is we shot next to each other a particular scene, side by side, shooting exactly the same thing, or same subject. But when we looked at the final photographs, wildly different. The same subject, but wildly different, because we each interpret in our own way. And I agree with you completely that we can teach the techniques, we can teach the whether that be on the photography side, whether that be post-production, etc. We can teach that, but what you can't teach is the creativity that's unique, and each person will express that creativity themselves. And if somebody wants it enough, they will learn it themselves anyway. Whether you teach it or they learn it from somewhere, they will still teach it themselves, because or learn it themselves, because that's the nature of creativity. But I think that this is the best time ever to be a photographer, and I think it's wonderful to share that passion, because the more interest there is, the more photographers, the more interest there is, the more opportunities there are for all of us to rise to the top, as it were. If we're good at what we do, we will still get noticed, and I think it's insecurity that people will hold back.
And for sure, what I think is that what we put in our creativity, in our art, is our life. So I had a conversation just yesterday with my girlfriend about creativity, some stuff that we are working on, and I told her, Kurt Cobain or Zakk Wylde or other artists, no one plays like the other, and because they had a different life. You can't play like Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix has a very specific kind of life. He had some trouble with drugs, some trouble with life. Okay, and to play like him, you have to be him. But
yes,
never happened.
That's the thing is I will never shoot photographs like you. You'll never shoot like me, because it's the whole combination of our experiences that got us there. And I think that I think that uniqueness is the thing that makes us the photographers we are. But let's go back and let's have a look at some more of your wonderful photographs. But again, folks that are watching along with us, please keep on with your comments and add and any questions you've got. Hey to Robin is joining us. Robin is a fantastic photographer who has recently moved to Greece. I'm interested to see what he does. Hey, Robin. Gerard, a wonderful underwater photographer based in Mauritius. Watching along, guys, welcome. Let's have, here we go. Oops. Nah, there we go. We're not in Italy anymore.
No. We don't have this kind of stuff in Italy. This was from Iceland last year. I was there in March for a scouting trip. Sadly, we didn't have the opportunity to run our workshop this year due to the COVID.
Yes, of
But
course.
next year we already have the new workshop in place. So here I was in the glacier of Vatnajökull. The pronunciation probably is not great, but
It's better than mine.
that one is one of the biggest glacier in Europe by volume. So in the fall, professional local guys go scouting for ice caves for the coming winter season, and the ice caves are only accessible during winter months. So we were there in March, and a guide, Ladi, a nice guy and great photographer, guided us into this one of these caves, and this shot is captured using the XT3, I guess, maybe, I guess XT with the 1024.
The 1024 again.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, here you can only shoot. Probably the two lenses that are crucial in this location is the wide-angle lens, ultra-wide-angle lens, better. And next time I'll be there, probably I'll bring with me a macro lens. It's so fascinating to capture some details on the ice inside. There are so much layers, and this specific shot is a composition of multiple shots. It's quite complex. I took 5 bracketed exposures with 2 stops, each one different of difference, and then I captured more images to focus stacking in Photoshop and to have crispy details. If you have a look on the left side, okay, there are these kind of veins. And I put myself as a figure, a subject, and I asked
because what's the point of going to an ice cave in Iceland if you can't have a hero shot?
Yes, yeah, and I asked to my colleague to click the shutter, and that's it. And after in post processing, I used. It was quite difficult to compose the shots, but I tried to achieve a look that reminded me Lord of the Rings. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, and this kind of warm and cold tones are the result of one of the scene with the dwarfs. That's it.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I love the way that the different tones and the different color, and especially how the sunlight is coming through, just those details. And actually, the focus stacking is a technique which surprisingly few people will be using effectively. I would love to hear. Perhaps you could throw out a very quick summary of how you would use. Focus stacking and why you would use it.
In this case, because I wanted to keep all the details on the ice, and I don't use it so frequently, focus stacking, but just in, for instance, most people use focus stacking with they are framing a strong foreground with a wide-angle lens. And to have a pin sharp from the front to the background, but usually I don't do it for a wide-angle shot like huge landscapes, because I don't mind to don't have super pin sharp the mountains on the back. For me, they looks more natural if they are less detailed. Okay, but that's my preference. It's probably it's completely wrong from
for somebody else.
A landscape photographer perspective, traditional. But in this case, I wanted to keep all the details front to back, and I didn't like to have some areas in autofocus with due to the depth of field. Okay.
And of course, in a scene like this, it really lends itself to that technique because although we've got so much detail in different places, there isn't actually so much depth of the image completely. Whereas if you're, as you mentioned, if you're taking a photograph of a landscape scene with the mountains in the background or whatever, then you've got that more distance. But in a scene like this, it really suited it.
And because I was very close to the left of the frame, I was about maybe 30 centimeters, so not so much. So to have a pin sharp from the front to the back, that's the only way.
And I think we have a couple more images to look at. Where are we here?
Yeah, we are in Landmannalaugar, always another huge place in the middle of Iceland. I was there in the same trip I made last year, and I sent you this triptych just to because I really enjoy capture minimalist images, and in my opinion, these kind of images are a real example of how I like to see this place. And like before, it's a telephoto lens image, telephoto shoots, and it's in Landmannalaugar. Usually in the summer, you have this area is completely colorful. It's so beautiful. There are tons of hiking trails up there. People can spend an entire week walking all up and down these beautiful mountains, hills, and the light was in the early morning around 10 a.m. So for sure not a sunrise or a sunset. And
so not so early morning.
No. Actually, you can see the because the shadows, how they are working, and I just made a very airy editing, just keep this kind of bluish tones, and I really enjoy these images, and that's.
And it really worked. The three images together really work. And if I'm not mistaken, this was taken with an XT30. So a very lightweight, very eminently portable camera. And I think that's something that a lot of people will be surprised at, the how powerful a lightweight camera like that can be. And something that Peter has raised. Would you ever consider using one of the medium formats, for example, the GFX 100S? Have you been tempted by any of the medium format cameras for your landscape work, or are you happy with these lightweight solutions?
No, I use multiple cameras from Fuji. I use the 50R, the GFX 100. I never tried the new one, the 100S, but I don't know. I enjoy them. I really enjoy to use that cameras, but because I do a lot of hiking, and actually these in this case, when I shoot these images, it was very easy to get there because we used a super Jeep 4x4 monster Jeep, and it's quite easy. But for other location, we had to walk for a certain amount of time and my main priority is travel and walking as lightweight as I can. So that's why. And and moreover, my necessity in terms of printing, I don't need so much megapixels. So.
I think I'm very similar. I look on, sometimes I look on at the beautiful images from the medium for the medium format cameras, and especially I have to say that the GFX 100S, boy, that's a tempting camera. But for me, it's exactly a similar thing. When I'm on assignment, I often walk 20-30 kilometers in a day, and so I'm always thinking about the weight of those cameras, and that's what I love about the setup I use. My main setup is an X Pro 3 and an X100V as a second body. Beautiful, a beautiful complementary setup and very lightweight. But still, I do look at those medium format cameras, and every now and then I think, well, you know, maybe if I took the water bottle and the jumper out, I could put the camera in. But anyway, we've got one last image to have a look at.
Last one is a very minimal shot from
yes.
in Norway. And we stopped with the group. We were in a workshop last year in Lofoten Islands, and we stopped in an area, an unusual area where it's not a very common place to stop for photographers workshop groups. So, and we split it in a couple of groups, and I were on one side of the road. There was this road, and a group of people was with my colleague in the other side, and I was next to the sea, and I simply captured this very intimate gesture of the snow right on the tips of the tip of the mountain, and with the post-processing I tried to eliminate, to concentrate more the attention towards these gestures. So it's very simple. Probably if you have a look and you find yourself in that place, probably you don't take too much attention to that mountain. But with that condition, it was brilliant. So.
But again, we come back to this uniqueness, that you will see something that other people and other photographers might not, in the scene, and you can capture it. What I love about this, I love those the focus at the top there with the snow blowing off. It very much reminds me of a sand dune in the desert with the sand blowing off, and I think it's got that same sort of feel, and the minimalist approach to it really works well. So I think one of the things that I'm interested in is how much you've been talking about your post-production work, and on a number of the images we've looked at, you have mentioned how you've used post-production to enhance that photograph. Do you, for your work, do you see the two really working hand in hand for your images?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that, like in music, the post-production is half of the process, and sometimes you pre-visualize your image and you capture. Actually, when we are in the field, we are capturing not only an image, but we are capturing data. So it really depends on the final product you want to create. So sometimes I capture something that is already there, and sometimes I react to a specific scene, but with a pre-visualization of what I'm gonna do in with the post-processing. And like in music, I bet anyone, when you buy a CD, or when you buy music, when you listen music, you are not listening music that is the raw material that a musician play in the rehearsals room. So when you listen music, you listen the final product. The final product is a process that is created with capturing the sound, tweaking the instruments, mixing and mastering and all that stuff. It's like the makeup. Everything needs some makeup. So that's the thing is in your style of photography, it's not strictly a journalistic approach. You're giving the impression of what you want people to see. So it's giving an impression of the field rather than necessarily exactly what they saw. So you don't mind putting in an extra couple of birds if it helps with the drama, because it adds to this Lord of the Rings feel that we're putting that drama in. And I think
a comment here from Danny that's a wonderful filmmaker, and talking a similar approach, very similar approach to filmmaking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Taking post-production into consideration when you shoot, and I think that's the key to it, is already knowing how you might use, what techniques you might use in camera and what techniques you might use in post-production as part of the overall film of the work. Well, fantastic imagery, and I think there's actually a comment from a while ago that I've left, and I wanted to bring in, which is from Gerard, as I mentioned, a wonderful underwater photographer in his own right. But now is the best time to capture what's left of nature, because it might not be there for much longer. And I think, that's something that those of us that enjoy, one of the things, I don't know about you, but one of the things that I love most is getting lost somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Totally
with a camera in my hand, and capturing and preserving that moment. And unfortunately, some of these scenes are not going to be around forever. And I see that as part of our role, is preserving and immortalizing these moments, so that in the future, people might well have to look at the photographs that we capture today as their way of knowing what it's like. And I think that's food for thought for all of us. But Andrea, it's been a fascinating conversation. We were going to try and limit ourselves to about 45 minutes, and we're already over the 1 hour mark. So I want to thank you for that, because it's been a fascinating insight into your craft. And especially I want to thank you because everybody watching on, I'm sure that let's remind that Andrea is doing this in another language. So having to keep track of what I'm talking about in another language. So congratulations for that. Forse possiamo parlare un po' in italiano.
That's great.
But thank you for speaking in English. Perché devo fare più praticare. But for now, I think we leave it at that. And thank you for joining us and giving us such an insight. And everybody, thank you for your comments. Remember, we are here every Monday, and every week we take another dive into the photography of a photographer from all around the world. So thank you again for joining us, and I'll see you next time.